Well, hello everyone. Welcome to this discussion. So in 2018, the Primary Curriculum Advisory Group, or PCAG, was established by the professional bodies the Royal Society of Chemistry, the Royal Society of Biology, and the Institute of Physics, and the Association for Science Education. PCAG was asked to produce advice on the future of the primary science curriculum to support the work of the Learned Society's curriculum work. PCAG are a group of highly regarded educators with experience and expertise in primary science. Today, we're going to be discussing 5 key characteristics that a primary curriculum should have. These can be found currently on the screen, as well as by scanning the QR code. So I'd like to take a second to introduce everyone that we have on the call today. So I will be calling your name, and you can just give us a quick introduction as to who you are and your involvement with the project. So I'll start with Ali.
Hi, I'm Eley. I'm the Director of National Programme at the Primary Science Teaching Trust, and prior to this role I've had over 20 years experience working in primary schools and 12 in initial teacher education. All of that has been with a focus on science but also on curriculum in general.
Thank you. And over to Jane.
Hi, I'm Jane Turner. I work at the University of Hertfordshire, where I'm Director of the Primary Science Quality Mark Programme, a CPD programme. I previously a primary teacher. I've spent over 25 years since leaving the classroom working in primary science CPD, teacher education, publishing, consultancy work, and I had the honour of chairing the PCAG group.
And Cheryl.
Hi there, my name's Cheryl Frost. I'm a primary school teacher down in Cornwall, and I am a science subject lead for my school. I am also the coordinator for an Ogden Trust partnership in the St. Austell area, which over the past few years has enabled me to lead some really great enrichment activities with local schools.
Thank you. And over to Lauren.
Hi, I'm Lauren McLeod. I'm the Head of Education Policy at the Royal Society of Biology. I'm representing the subject organisations on this call, so the RSC and the IOP as well, and ASE. And previously I was a secondary science teacher actually, so we bring that expertise too.
Thank you. And thank you all very much for giving your time to talk to us today. So I'll start with a question for open to the whole group, so anyone can jump in with this one. What do you see as the current issues with primary science curriculum?
I can talk about this one. So I'm going to be speaking particularly about the English curriculum. That's where our expertise is and our experience, and I'm assuming that's what Cheryl will talk about as well. The English National Curriculum, been in place since 2014, actually through ASE, was part of the development of that. I can't say it was the most rigorous of, the approach to it wasn't overly evaluative. And we've ended up with a very knowledge-heavy, content-driven curriculum with no real tangible rationale or intent for the children's learning. So the purpose isn't really clear to teachers or children. There's a lot of knowledge. It's organised in discrete topics, so it's quite hard for children to see a bigger picture of science or how scientific ideas developed. There's quite a lot in there that's very abstract for young children, and then offers potential for teachers to go beyond what's really needed at this age. It's not seen in the context of a wider curriculum, so I think it's often taught as a silo subject rather than links made across the whole curriculum. And quite a lot of the good stuff ends up as enrichment rather than core curriculum content. So that would be my summary of current issues with our current primary science curriculum.
Thank you very much. Lauren.
Yeah, on the curriculum, we've been preparing as subject organisations for a long time to influence the next round of curriculum reform. And we've really taken the period since there was last reforms in England, Scotland and in Wales to think about it, get in experts and address any issues in the national curriculum. We really want to make it more coherent, more consistent, to remove repetition and to sort of future-proof the curriculum. But we also wanted to think about why and how something's included in the curriculum and making sure that it really is age appropriate. Some good examples of that is that in biology, at the moment in the national curriculum, it's really likely that a student who's 7, 10, 12, 14 will be faced with the same hour-long lesson on food chains. And we really want to kind of address that and have a more coherent learning progression across both primary and secondary school. And our organisations have got frameworks alongside the Primary Curriculum Advisory Group report and the response that we're publishing to address that with the new government.
Oh, thank you. And Cheryl, as an acting teacher, it would be interesting to get your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, I think the concerns I have tie into what was already said. I think there's not a lot of purpose in science learning right now. It's very prescriptive. I think the learning that does take place lacks depth and understanding, and I just don't think we're giving children adequate time to build on these concepts to enable them for their future learning. I think as well, children they really don't see themselves as scientists based off of their backgrounds and where they come from. They don't think that science is for them.
Thank you. So, Lauren, as one of the Learn Society representatives, I just wanted to ask, why did you see the need to bring together the Primary Curriculum Advisory Group?
So as I said, our organisations have been thinking about it for a long time, but we've all taken slightly different approaches whilst working together to align and work together on science education policy. So RSB took an approach from 5 to 19 from the very beginning, whereas our partners in physics and chemistry focused initially on secondary science. So around 2018, we were having lots of discussions about primary science and bringing in more expertise and using what RSB had done, as well as the experts that had contributed to that work across the sciences to have this sort of joint approach. And we asked the group to produce an advisory report for us, which we're really pleased with. We really like the kind of different things that have been presented in that report and that we'll talk about in this session. So things like the essential experiences and the conceptual boundaries. We think those are kind of new ideas for curriculum reform, and it's good to have that sort of framework on the curriculum. And we also brought in the Association for Science Education as a partner, and we asked them to nominate Jane. We're really pleased that she was able to take that on, as well as all of the other experts, to bring that additional expertise and thinking about primary pedagogy.
Thank you very much. So leading on from that, I'd like to ask Eley and Jane, with your involvement in the creation of the report, what were some of the research that you drew upon to come up with the recommendations?
Well, we all as a group recognise the need to move away from our existing knowledge and assumptions about what a curriculum is. And so we looked at a number of aspects. First of all, I'll talk a bit about the research. Multiple sources from in and beyond the UK, and different aspects of that. So, for example, curriculum design and purpose for primary and secondary. And in particular, we looked at what the University of Berkeley were recommending and some work by Rees and White. We looked closely at the research around conceptual development and what constitutes worthwhile knowledge, and some work done some time ago, but still really valuable, by Stenhouse. The social justice approaches and recent research in that, the work of Louise Archer and her colleagues was key, and that links to what Cheryl was saying about whether children see themselves as scientists. So that was really important. We did delved into global citizenship and the research around that, in particular some of the work done by Oxfam, the United Nations, and also the Association for Science Education themselves. And lastly, research around climate science education and some work that the Climate Psychology Alliance, some of their research into children and eco-anxiety and how that was important for what it means to be a global citizen. So that was the research side. I think Jane might want to chip in with.
Yeah, we were really fortunate to be able to call on expert colleagues from across the education sector in the UK, and also met with some overseas colleagues at conferences and talked about our work. So we brought in people to meet with us, to talk with us, people with recognised expertise in science curriculum design, in early years, in conceptual development in science, in creativity and learning, about decolonising the curriculum. And that was really, as Ali said, we had to shift ourselves from, all of us having worked in primary science education for a very long time. It's quite hard. We called it a rigidity, an epistemological rigidity that we were stuck within, and being able to see outside of it. And that was really helpful. And some of the biggest help in that was actually our colleagues in the learned societies, who really did encourage us to think differently, to think broadly, and that was really helpful. And also the work they'd already done on secondary curricula framework. So that altogether was a really helpful mix of research that Ali's outlined and the people we were able to talk to. This was a quite a long process. It was rigorous. We did a lot of talking, we did a lot of going round and round, backs and forwards, and it was really, really, really stimulating work. And we also were fortunate enough as members of the ASE to be able to share our work with other members as we were going forward and get their feedback as well. So yeah, it was a very iterative process that drew on a lot of expertise.
Fantastic. It sounds like an awful lot of learning and work has gone into it. So we'll move into the actual recommendations themselves, some questions around how we got to the recommendations that are seen in the report. So this first one I'll direct towards both Jane and Ali, as well as Lauren, if anyone would like to jump in with it. How can we ensure that all young children can access an equitable science education at primary school? Who would like to jump
Shall I
in?
start here? I'll start with this
Go
one,
ahead,
if that's
Jane.
okay. So this was absolutely crucial to us. As you alluded to, Cheryl, we need to ensure that all children see that science is going to be a valuable part of their lives and to develop a science identity. And we do that by making science equitable, that all children can engage with whatever's happening in the classroom. So looking at the curriculum through a lens of valuing what the individual experiences that children bring, seeing all children as science rich. They all come with a range of different experiences and knowledge, and we want to value them all and actually use them as part of to develop on in the learning in the classroom. And some of that has to be through the thoughtful use of context. So the images we use, the resources we use, the narratives we tell, to make sure that they're not excluding any children. And the primary science capital approach was really key for us in this. So the work that Louise Archer has led, and then the Primary Science Teaching Trust and the Ogden Trust have built on in the primary science capital teaching approach, was incredibly helpful to us here. And so it's about recognizing the experiences children bring, but also recognizing that children don't come with equal experience. So actually providing a repertoire of shared, what we call essential experiences, that all children need to have these really foundational experiences, and very, things that might seem quite simple, hanging washing on a line, planting vegetable seeds, cooking and eating the product, but making sure that all children have that really foundational concrete experiences of science all around them and the impact and the relation it has to their own lives. So they are very firmly built into our curriculum.
I think it might be worth adding to that, really important, putting the child at the centre of what's happening. So it's not a curriculum that's done to them, but it's a curriculum that starts from them. There are some key structural things that would need to happen, that schools need to be able to recognise and ensure that science is a core subject and is a priority, and that they can accommodate this in the timetable and in their resourcing, and that there's adequate professional development for teachers and student teachers so that they can deliver this curriculum from a position of strength and understanding about how to put that child at the centre of it as well. Lauren, were you going to add anything?
Yeah, I can come in. So yeah, I agree. I think equitable access at primary school does need to focus on the different challenges that are faced by science coordinators, and the fact that they're supporting teachers with varying levels of experience or qualifications in the sciences. I think part of that also includes that science coordinators need support to champion for the sciences with senior leadership as well as their teaching partners. And that also we want to build the confidence of teachers so that we can build the enthusiasm of students and Somebody mentioned the Aspires research earlier. We really want to make sure that that's sort of embedded in primary science, and making sure that the enthusiasm that students have at primary for the sciences carries on into secondary and throughout.
Thank you. So for Cheryl, I think you'll be very good at answering this because you've already alluded to it a little bit in some of your previous answers. So what are the sorts of contexts that you think would be really important to include in primary science teaching?
Yeah, I think anything that really makes science relatable and relevant to the children that we teach and really give it a purpose. So that's starting at the personal level with their own experiences and what things are relevant to them in their everyday lives that we can share in class. And then that's moving more into a local context and looking at issues that affect the local areas that we live in. And then that's moving into a wider global community, and then looking at the concerns that we all face as global citizens.
Okay, and Jane?
Cheryl, you said it for me. It's a curriculum that matters to children, a curriculum that makes sense for them and matters to them. They understand why they're learning it. They see how it connects to their lives and the lives around them. So I didn't really need to come in there because you'd already said it. So thank you very much.
Perfect. So building on from those answers, I want to introduce the first couple of recommendations that you'll find in the report. So following on from those, the Learning Societies have recommended that we help all children to feel included in the sciences through the experiences that they have and the perspectives put on science narratives, and by encouraging teachers to use contexts that are familiar to primary age children. Also, to help children identify with the sciences by providing opportunities for teachers to choose contexts that are relevant to their pupils. So thank you for those wonderful answers to the previous section. We'll move on to the next couple of recommendations. So this one, again, is open to the group. Science is everywhere. It's completely universal, and it's done by such a diverse group of people all over the world. Is this currently shown in the current curriculum that we have? And if not, how can we ensure that we reflect this diversity? And why is it important to actually include this diversity in the first place? Who would like to jump in first?
I think
I can jump in first. Oh.
Yeah, sure. There's a bit of overlap with what we just said, and Cheryl's mentioned it. I think Lauren and Jane both have as well, but just this is such an important thing of valuing what children bring already to the classroom and their existing experiences, and that teachers are making sure that children can see themselves and their lives reflected in all of the materials and resources that are used. And perhaps just looking at what has been happening in the past is the curriculum stipulates now that children should learn about scientists. And it's been difficult for teachers not just to sort of focus on the biographical details about scientists. And I think we would say it's really important that a new curriculum would give teachers easy and clear opportunities to share details of scientists with children, so that children see a really diverse representation, and also to see what those scientists are actually doing and the scientific methods and processes they're using, so that they're understanding how those scientists are working, what the point of their work is, and that they're seeing that they could be like that too. I think that's for PCAG group is probably the most key point in there, but others might want to add a bit more.
Lauren.
Yeah, we're really keen to support this. The Royal Society of Biology takes what we informally refer to as a no more heroes approach. We want to see individuals highlighted in the curriculum that come from all ranges of age, background, seniority. We want children to recognise that science isn't just medicine or someone in a lab coat, but it's also in farming or food production or the local garden centre. And also that it impacts them individually as well as globally. And, you know, we've had a lot of discussion about that over recent years with the pandemic and vaccinations, but it's also in climate change and making healthy choices. So what we're really looking for is flexibility within the curriculum rather than relying on the same old handful of examples from the history of science.
Thank you. You're doing a very good job of leading into some of the future questions that we've got coming up as well. But I just want to jump to Cheryl to see if she has anything to add to this one.
Yeah, I was just going to say, definitely scientists being such a diverse community and really teaching children that they can be scientists too, I think is really, really important. That's kind of introducing them and teaching them about scientists throughout history, both historical scientists, contemporary scientists, and just introducing that through updated resources and including that in our curriculum, the books that we use, displays in the classrooms, posters in the corridors, having visitors come into the school just to have children experience that diverse culture of science, because it really is.
Thank you. So I think Lauren was sort of alluding to some of these sort of things, but there are a myriad of challenges that we face as a society going forwards. What are some of the key ones that you'd really like to see brought to the primary science curriculum for learners to really get to grips with?
I think from our work in PCAG, rather than, I mean, we see there are many challenges that the curriculum needs to address and give children the confidence and understanding about how, as citizens, they move forward with the agency to actually live better lives and to help their community to live better lives. So we see that rather than posing it as challenges, as the key things that we really want children to get from this curriculum. So 2 overarching concepts of sustainability and interdependence. And we think if children leave primary school really having a clear understanding about how important those 2 ideas are and how, you know, they're going to be important throughout the rest of their lives, and they're really important for them to just understand the world, and as we sort of to lead these flourishing lives that we really hope they will lead, this is what our PCAG framework really addresses. You know, global citizenship describes individuals and communities who take responsibilities for their actions and work towards making the world a more equitable and sustainable place. And that's what has underpinned the work we've done. We want our curriculum to empower children to feel that they have agency to make good decisions about their lives now, in the future, for their communities and for the planet. So rather than posing it as challenges, it's posing it as an opportunity. You know, this is what the curriculum needs to embody so that children feel confident.
Yeah, and I think it might be worth adding that this is because it's primary age children, and so 11, 12 and under, a lot of care is needed around introducing any kind of global challenge because of the levels of eco-anxiety that can cause. So whatever the content that is shared with children, the research shows that it needs to be truthful, but it must come also with messages of positive action. So that, I think, again, is reflected in how all of the suggested content knowledge in the PCAG framework is linked to them building this understanding that Jane was just talking about of how important interdependence is and how important sustainability is. So everything in there is feeding into those 2 key overarching concepts.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that sort of change being reflected in resources being produced more recently, where they introduce the problem but also show what the science is being done to try and combat this and actually address it, to change it from that normal doom and gloom presentation to one of a bit more hope going forwards. So this next one is again for all, but I believe Cheryl will probably have quite a strong opinion on it, and it's, what's the value of having practical experiences in primary school?
Yeah, I feel really strongly about this one. Over the past few years, we've implemented a practical hands-on approach curriculum in our school. I think sometimes as teachers, we can pigeonhole children based off of their ability level in the other core subjects like maths and English, and it isn't an accurate reflection of the knowledge that they bring to science. I think having a practical curriculum makes it accessible to all the children children that we teach. And I think it also sets them up with life skills that will carry them forward. So we're looking at things that in these practical hands-on investigations, how to be curious, how to ask questions about the world around them, how to team build and work collaboratively with peers, how to problem solve and think outside of the box. And these are things that are not just applicable to science. These are things that will carry them through life with whatever endeavors they choose to do. I think there is a caveat to this, though, because I do think that in order to have a practical curriculum, it goes back to giving it purpose. There has to be a reason why they are doing these fun hands-on things. So again, we have to be mindful that what we teach has a purpose.
Really having those learning points for each practical set in advance. Absolutely. Lauren.
Yeah, hands-on experience really brings science into real life. As Cheryl kind of suggested there, it helps students develop numeracy and literacy skills and motor skills alongside the understanding of science and enthusiasm for the sciences. The learned societies or subject organisations, we really value the essential experiences that PCAG have set out. Many of those include practical activities. And I think they do link really well with the purpose of primary science education. And from a policy point of view, we really want to make sure that schools are supported with resources to enable those experiences, and that that's prioritised at a top level.
I think, can I chip in here?
Of course you can.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, Lauren, and also Cheryl, you completely encapsulated what the point of practical work is. But just to add to that and to link to the idea of children developing an identity as a scientist and developing those scientific habits, I think it's worth mentioning practical work's really supportive for helping children understand ideas change over time, and that over time scientists have changed their minds and built on the work of each other, and all good scientists are open to changing their minds, moving away from there has to be a right answer, but helping children focus on linking their ideas to actual evidence. So they might have an incorrect idea, but if they've got good evidence for that, that's okay, because when they meet new evidence in the light of that, then they'll change their minds. And practical work is a really good way of helping provide new evidence for them to move their ideas forward.
Thank you all very much. So on to the next couple of recommendations based on those discussions. So the recommendations are that to have a strong emphasis on purpose, considering not just what is taught and learned, but why and how, so that children develop a coherent and cognitively appropriate understanding of how the world works and their own agency within it. And also to encourage children to think scientifically, to discuss and explain their thinking, and through practical experience gain a sense of the nature and practices of the sciences, which really leads into what Ali was just discussing at the end there. So this one's for either Ali or Jane. Why did you want to include conceptual boundaries in the framework recommendations?
So these were intended not to restrict learning, but to support teachers with knowing what content is cognitively and developmentally appropriate for children at that age. Because when they go to secondary school, science gets more abstract and it gets harder. And so the primary phase should be about laying concrete foundations, and that might be through the essential experiences will help with that we talked about earlier, but also just ensuring that the content that's prescribed for teachers, it really is building those foundations so children can draw on that when the science gets more difficult. And also another thing that with the current curriculum that Jane mentioned is the fact that these topics are discrete at the moment and there's not much joined upness going on, and that's not giving children a basis of a kind of whole picture of science. And so if the amount of content, if you like, is just contained a bit and teachers don't feel they have to rush ahead, it will enable them to join those dots a bit more for the children, so they go to secondary for the next phase of learning with really solid building blocks ready for science getting a bit more difficult.
Thank you. And Cheryl, as an educator yourself, how do you think having some of those boundaries would affect the way that you go about teaching?
I think including conceptual boundaries in the framework will have a positive impact on teachers and future learning through achievable objectives. Having a clear idea of what is age appropriate to teach in science based off of children's cognitive ability, I think will make them better learners. They will have a greater depth to their understanding. I think they'll retain information a lot better. And as Ali said, I think it's building a really solid foundation for moving forward and progressing into secondary school. I think as well, it's a really great way of looking at those small steps. These are things that we use in the other core subjects. So I think it'll be really helpful, because I think sometimes we have to remember too, and I know Lauren mentioned this before, is that not all primary school teachers have a background in science. So this will give them a foundation to build on and to know kind of where the children are coming from and where they're going to with that solid foundation.
Fantastic, thank you very much. Which brings me to the final recommendation, which is to ensure the curriculum plans for progression to avoid content being taught before it is appropriate for the age of development stage of the child. So we'll move on to just sort of some final wrap-up questions and thoughts. So for everyone, anyone who'd like to jump in on this one, in terms of what comes next, what would you like to see from the government to ensure that all primary students have access to a really good, high quality science education?
Well, we welcome the new Education Secretary's announcement of curriculum review. We think it's timely. We need curriculum review, and we are excited to see how that happens and to be part of that discussion and that consultation. We think we need a new curriculum that's fit for purpose, and a lot has happened in the interim since the last one. So we are very keen to see a new curriculum, a science curriculum that's fit for purpose, that builds those foundations we've just talked about, but provides a really rich, positive experience learning science at primary school to build all that positive attitudes that we've talked about, as well as the foundational knowledge. It needs to support the wider aims of primary curriculum. So it needs to be seen in a much more coherent vision of primary curriculum altogether. And it has to have purpose, as Cheryl has said, as Ali said, we've all said, there has to be a purpose behind it. Why are we doing this? Why are we spending time teaching young children science? It's not just that they can go to secondary school and do a bit more. It's so that they can build that identity and see how science is important in their lives. So we want a curriculum that is really purposeful for teachers, purposeful for children. We want children to lead flourishing lives. We want them to make positive decisions about their own health, be ready and able to take their place in the world as future custodians of the planet. And we think that starts, well, we know that starts in primary school.
Thank you. Lauren?
Thanks. Yeah, the subject associations are all seeking meetings with the new government in England and with those leading curriculum reviews in Scotland and England, which includes in England Professor Becky Francis. And we're really looking forward to using the PCAG recommendations. We think we're really well prepared for the curriculum reform, and our response to the report adds to those recommendations alongside our individual organisations' work on curriculum and policy. In terms of teaching, we feel really strongly that any entitlement to CPD should include some expectation that some of it is subject specific, and that teachers have the autonomy to identify what they need most out of CPD. And we also, all of our organisations support the sort of long-standing position that primary schools should aim for 2 hours of science per week.
Right. And Cheryl?
Yeah, I agree with that completely. I think from a primary school point of view, we need to raise the profile of science in our schools. There needs to be a consistent approach to the way we teach primary science, on par with the other core subjects. And I think that means investing in people, and that's organizations and individuals that support science education, and that's investing in our teachers and giving them the training and the confidence they need to deliver a science curriculum. And at the end of the day, when we invest in those things, we're investing in our children, who are going to be the future of science and our future problem solvers.
Okay, thank you very much. And then the final question I have for you all, what's one key thing that must happen for a new primary science curriculum to be successfully embedded within our education system?
Well, I think the last question, the answers to that, which were really interesting, kind of showed that one key thing is pretty hard to pick out. I think the thing about it fitting with the wider aims of primary education is really crucial. You wouldn't be able to just put this new science thing into what's existing. It's part of a bigger agenda. And I think the point as well about teacher development, and Cheryl made the point that not all teachers have a science background. So there has to be built-in time for that. And also, crucially, that there's really, really good consultation. And Lauren just mentioned about the curriculum review coming up, and hopefully that will happen really well. And then lastly, I think something around a PCAG would certainly like to see that evaluation of it is built in. So how are we going to know that it is working? Is it future proofed for, it might be good for now? Is it going to be good in 5-10 years time because there won't be a new curriculum for a while after? Is it flexible and adaptable? So there's a few things. Sorry, that wasn't one key thing, but I really think that's just impossible to answer.
As you said, it was, very difficult to just narrow it down to one. So
Yeah.
Lauren, that's now your task. Do you have one or multiple?
Well, I think it's that primary science shouldn't be an afterthought. It's really easy for big reforms to focus on the portion of the education system that is exam driven. And much of the education system that we've got at the moment is driven by assessment. So what we really want to see is curriculum reform informed by pedagogical research and best practice. And from a subject organisation point of view, we want to use our strong voice as a collective to inform the new curricula as they're developed.
Thank you very much. So in the interest of similar to what we were mentioning before with making sure we talk about the positives and things that are being done, I just wanted to mention some of the things the Learned Societies are already doing in regards to primary curriculum. So at the Royal Society of Chemistry, we have a variety of primary curriculum resources and CPD opportunities, which are available on our Steps into Science website, which I believe a QR code will appear, and there'll be a link in the YouTube video that you're watching, as well as our sister societies, IOP, so the Institute of Physics, the Royal Society of Biology, the Association for Science Education. They'll all have a variety of resources as well. So if you just search for primary resources, you'll get lots and lots of results and answers for you. So that leaves me one thing to thank everybody for their help today in kind of really fleshing out and giving some reasoning behind the recommendations that we have in the report. So thank you to Eley, to Lauren, to Cheryl, and to Jane as well. So everyone, thank you very much for your input today, and thank you all very much for watching.